Hello everyone and welcome back. This is Bora. Today we are going to talk about the BOWAZON in Season 2. Now, not a lot has changed since Season 1, but there have been some actual improvements to the build, and all told makes it, even that much better than it was last season. Now, I still find this the most fun build to play. Definitely my bread and butter. Probably the build, maybe aside from Zeal Pally, that I know the most about. Just in terms of the mechanics of how everything works. So I love this build. Another thing that I love about it is that the gear is seemingly endlessly scalable. And it is kind of that whole season-long challenge in terms of how to perfect and optimize this build. Yeah, I mean, in terms of the actual skills, there hasn't been major changes, but in terms of just some of the best in slot gear that you use, there's actually been some buffs that are worth calling out. So anyways, guys, I'm just going to preface this whole video with saying, because I love the BOWAZON so much, I'm actually going to follow this video with a full series of, I'm going to go slot by slot and talk about what is the best piece of gear for that slot. I'm going to do the math, guys, because I get a lot of questions on it. Moreover, I get a lot of comments of people, either just asking questions or spreading misinformation about what is best in slot. Guys, at the end of the day, this game is nothing but numbers. So there's math to be done. And I will break down in full detail which piece of gear is better than the other. And I'm going to start with a comparison between the Windforce and Bariza. Not to say that Bariza has no part in the game. In fact, I do believe that Bariza is a great option for as you build up to this endgame kind of gear and build. But all told, the Windforce is going to be objectively better. So if you want to know things like on that level of detail, I'm going to do a series of kind of shorter videos that will go slot by slot, talking about which is best in slot. So if that is of interest to you guys, and if you guys do like my content, again, please feel free to subscribe. I'm just going to continue putting out more and more content, and I am trying to do that gear series, one video every kind of 2 or 3 days. So anyways, guys, let's jump into what's up in Season 2 with the BOWAZON. So again, not much has changed for this multi-shot BOWAZON. There was some changes to Cold Arrow and Fire Arrow, but in terms of the skill tree that matters to us in this situation, which is the multi-shot, there's actually been no changes to the skills that really matter to us. So let's just jump right in and start with, as always, the stats. I kind of follow the same template whenever I do one of these build showcases and guides, just so that there's a bit of consistency. I like to start with the stats. Now, guys, this is the glass cannon variation of a BOWAZON. Now, what makes it a glass cannon? Every point in dexterity that you add to a BOWAZON, or even a throw barb, in case you are wondering, adds 1 enhanced damage. So that means for this build, we put enough strength to wear our gear, and then we put the rest into dexterity. So this build has 0 vitality. All the vitality I'm getting basically from my torch, my Annie, and my gear. Now this build is a little bit hard to pull off because if you don't have torch and Annie, I'm just going to show you what that looks like quickly. I have 461 life, and I do have charms that have life. To be honest, I have quite a few charms that have life. So without that torch and Annie, this build is a pretty rippy, and you can definitely die. We'll talk about how you can overcome that with your skill build later. But guys, that's basically it for the stats. Go enough strength to wear your gear. 134 is Windforce strength requirement. That will be in almost every situation your highest strength requirement piece of gear. So get to that 134 and then dump everything else into dexterity. In terms of these skill points, again, nothing has changed, guys. So this is what I recommend, and I strongly recommend this. I do get a lot of people arguing with me over why don't you max guided arrow? And guys, like, I did this on stream late last year, but all told, my tooltip damage last season was showing 15k guided, and when I max guided, it went to 16k. You can see you get 3% ED per level, guys. It just doesn't If you're to max, and guide it, it just doesn't matter. Plus, it's not the skill that you use all the time anyway. You use this against bosses, and you use this against physical immunes. And aside from that, you're using multi-shot pretty much exclusively. So don't worry about skilling the guided arrow and magic. 1 point in each. You definitely need 1 point in each. Don't go beyond that. And when it comes to your inventory, don't go with bow skillers because this stuff just does not scale very well at all. Obviously, nothing in javelin and spear skills. And for the passive tree, this is where we can get a little bit creative. I always max crit strike. With pierce, you want enough points so that you have 100% pierce. I'm a little bit over indexed. I'm not going to worry about it. Zons are actually quite spoiled for choice in terms of where they put their skill points. Guys, by the way, if you want to pull up this menu, just hit 8 on your keyboard, not on the numpad, but above your keys. Hit 8, it'll pull open this menu. There's a ton of valuable information here, including your run walk, your increased attack speed, and your projectile pierce, all of which we are going to talk about in this video, as well as hit recovery. So let's continue on. And so enough points in pierce to get to 100%. This is going to how many points you invest into this is going to vary greatly based on the gear that you use. I wear currently Giant Skull, which grants Pierce, and therefore I need a very, very low skill point investment into Pierce. And then 1 point in Penetrate as well. I do like to max both of these, and I'll, as a primary benefit, these things add, you can dodge while you're attacking, standing still, or running. So that's that's the evade and dodge portion of it. But now they also add these passive bonuses as well. This one adds movement speed. This one adds faster hit recovery. I can't stress enough that movement speed, guys, is so critically important to this build because movement speed equals clear speed. Now think about a source playing with no teleport. Like the teleport is the advantage, right? Because you can kill, teleport, and get from point A to point B faster. Clear speed is king, guys, in this game. I can't say it enough. If you haven't watched my pro tips on magic finding, please go check that out. But we talk about in great detail why it's so important, why clear speed is so much more important than magic find and being methodical and killing every, anyway, watch that video if you want more details on that. So another super important thing to call out, and I guess if you are struggling to survive in this game, because again, your glass cannon, your gear just isn't at that point where you're one-shotting things or even two-shotting them, and you need a little bit more survivability, you can definitely consider maxing Valk, or at least getting 1 point in Valk. I don't use it because I kill things at a pace that my Valk is basically, just running beside me. She doesn't do pretty much anything at all, so I don't invest points in Valk. If you did want to, you can, peel 10 points off each of these, or if you're to choose which one between evade and dodge, I would actually choose to max evade and then just put 1 point in dodge if you needed to. Now, again, Zons are pretty spoiled for choice in terms of where they invest their skill points. So all told, you're going to be able to find the points that you need to put into Valkyrie. That's if you need it. I certainly don't recommend it. Now, another thing that is important to call out right now is that movement speed. So there is a difference between movement speed from gear and movement speed from skills. Movement speed from gear has very, very steep diminishing returns once you hit 100. Whereas movement speed from skills like Vigor and like Evade has no diminishing return, so it actually very greatly increases your run speed. That's why I love the Act 1 Mercenary, because she grants Vigor Aura. It, for whatever reason, hasn't kicked in yet. Honestly, the Mercs are a little buggy. I just want to clarify this for everybody. The Tri-Aura does work. So if you have Fanaticism, Vigor, and Might on your Mercenary, all three of them work without issue. Sometimes it's just a little bit buggy and it takes a little while for the Vigor to kick in. Do I know why? No, but eventually it'll kick in and you'll see it when it applies. Anyway, let's not get too hung up on that. And while we wait for that to kick in, let's start talking about arguably the most important concept to the Windforce Boson, and that is increased attack speed. Now, I always say this, guys. If you're to build a wind force physical damage BOWAZON build, I strongly recommend waiting until you have two pieces of gear. One, a good wind force, and two, faith bow on your mercenary. So I'm going to pause here and explain why this is so important. When you get increased attack speed from fanaticism, it applies to the base of your weapon. And while that it has a huge technical explanation, I'll just do my best to quantify it in very simple terms. If you do not have fanaticism on your mercenary, you need 292 increased attack speed to reach your maximum increased attack speed frames, your max attack speed breakpoint, which for a wind force is 7 frames equals 3.57 attacks per second. That is what every BOWAZON should strive for. That is what you want on basically whenever you play any physical damage character, you basically want to be hitting the top frames so long as you don't have to sacrifice so much to get there. Now, if you were to try to achieve 292 increased attack speed, the sacrifices would be so great that it would just totally not be worth even trying that. But all told, when you have fanaticism, and guys, fanaticism on a faith bow ranges between 12 and 15. When you have 12, you need 100 increased attack speed. And guys, I'm rounding up from 99 to 100. Please don't nitpick over this kind of stuff. You actually there's one situation in the game where you can get these odd numbers of increased attack speed, and if that is if you have an increased attack speed only corruption on your bow. So anyway, it's such a niche scenario. Let's just ignore it. If you have 12 fanaticism, you need 100 increased attack speed. If you have 13, 14, or 15, you need 95. Now, it doesn't seem like a huge distinction to make, but it actually does matter because at the end of the day, you get 20 from your bow, 20 from your gloves, 20 from your belt, 20 from your ammi, and therefore that 15 can just come from one singular jewel. Whereas it gets a little bit messy if you need that additional 5%. You either need to use another jewel or get a 10 eye slam on your belt or something like that, which again, it's not going to break your build, guys, by any means, but it's just not optimal. And obviously we're all striving for the most possible damage, what's most optimal, and obviously we're going to go from there. I'm actually just going to create a new game because my Merc seems to be bugged out in a weird way, but anyway, that's a digression. So yeah, increased attack speed, you need 95. And again, it's very easy to hit once you hit that faith bow. And again, just changes the dynamic of your build so much. Like the damage, and now you can see that the vigor is kicked in, and look how fast, I actually kind of outpace my arrows, you can kind of do this stick and move technique, and you can ultimately clear things very fast, which again, guys, is why clear. And here we can show what 1 point in magic arrow does to a physical immunity. So all told, run walk equals clear speed in this situation, guys. So make sure that you have a healthy balance of I hit exactly 100 faster run walk with my gear. If you choose to, I think I have a pretty optimal build. Not everything is maxed out yet. Because it's still relatively early, but I'm getting 100 from my gear, which I recommend hitting, and then obviously the rest from my spazzing out Merc over here with the Vigor Aura and from the Evade Talon. So let's just dive into the gear. And so this is probably the main difference with the BOWAZON in Season 2, is back in Season 1, you could not corrupt a wind force for 5 or 6 sockets. You can still only puzzle a wind force for 4 sockets, just to make things clear. But last season, to get a really strong wind force, you actually had to get a nice corruption, and then you had to puzzle for 4, and the odds of that happening are so low. The way that obviously corruptions work, just as a rehash, you have a 25% chance of bricking the item, 50% chance of getting a mod, and 25% chance of getting sockets. Now, when you roll that 25% chance of getting sockets, as far as I know, guys, there's an equal chance of getting 1, 2, 3, all the way up to 6. Which would mean, in terms of pure math, that you have a greater than 4% chance of corrupting any wind force into a 6 open socket wind force. A 5 open socket wind force would be very strong as well. So when you add those two things together, you have a damn near 9% chance of rolling yourself a very good wind force. It's made the build a lot more accessible this season. And again, guys, you just don't need a good corruption on top of a puzzle box. Even though the best in slot win force actually is a corruption with a puzzle box, but the 6 open socket win force just lags slightly behind, not in a meaningful way really at all. Again, if we're talking about what is absolute pure best in slot, it's not the 6 open socket win force, but in terms of like what's attainable, and like, again, I've seen a number of these for sale already, and it's because there is about a 4% chance of slamming this mod. It's just made the build that much more accessible. Just to be clear, an Ohm rune is not the ideal thing to have in this bow. The perfect jewel to have would be a 40 ED 15 max jewel. It doesn't make a huge difference, but it does make a difference. I will showcase that in a separate video. I'll showcase an Ohm rune compared to like a 4015, compared to a 4014, compared to a 3913, for instance, just as options. Because pretty much every one of those jewels that I just mentioned is better than an Ohm rune. So if you can, fill your bow with 6 jewels that are better than an Ohm rune, obviously that's just going to serve to optimize your build a little bit better. So for the helm, I've chosen Giant Skull this season. Veil of Steel was buffed. Now, I will, again, when I do the helmet video, which will be the second one that I do because I think it's a super important item slot, Veil of Steel was buffed, but it is hard to pull off because the strength requirement is so high, and therefore the jewels that you use in it are different, and it creates an interesting dynamic with the build. We'll talk about that later. Veil of Steel is a great option here. Giant Skull is a great option, and Valk Helm is another fantastic option. I've used Giant Skull this season. Again, it has Pierce. Crushing Blow doesn't really matter. There's a range penalty, plus they capped it in PD2. They just nerfed Crushing Blow in general. I wouldn't be too like, this is not the reason that you use this helmet. It has innate enhanced damage on it, which is obviously great. This was a super low roll, but I got it very early in the season. It also has plus strength. So again, if you're on that journey to 134 strength, this has 106 strength requirement, and therefore that 29 strength is going to basically get me, to where I need to be, and to where my win force. And that's kind of the nice thing about some of the gear that you wear. Like it's very like stepwise. Like this has no strength requirement and adds strength, which will get you to this, which adds strength, which will get you to this, which will get you to this, which will get you to this. So there's really pretty low strength requirement if you're to follow this build here. But anyway, let's just continue on slot by slot. So Cat's Eye. This is better than High Lords, guys. I'll explain it in a future video, obviously. But take my word for it. For now, Cat's Eye, objectively better than High Lords. It does have faster run walk, increased attack speed, and dexterity. Now, again, dexterity, 1 point dexterity equals 1 enhanced damage. So it's consistently adding damage for you, and the best slam that you could get on this amulet is 40 enhanced damage, with the secondary being probably just more dex. If this was 12 dex instead of strength, it would be better. But again, there's a trade-off with all of this gear, because if you're not over-indexed on strength, any point that you gain from strength from your gear or from your inventory is a point that you're going to later add to dexterity. So there is that trade-off. So it's not like strength is a terrible roll on your items. So guys, Tyrael's Might, you guys know that I rave about this item all the time, and it got better in Season 2. I can't believe they buffed it, but they did. The buff was that damage to demons and damage to undead, the range used to be 70 to 120. It is now 100 to 150. Now, this is not the armor that you would wear if you were PvPing. This is a PvM game, by and large. So this damage to demons and damage to undead is unreal. Now, like, I don't know, I'll show you guys, like, if you ever hover over these things. Now, Quill Rat isn't one of these, but a Fallen is a demon. We'll go find ourselves a zombie. They're undead. So this armor is adding more damage to all of those types. All act bosses are demons. Most map bosses, I believe, are demons as well. So the way that this works, guys, and this is a common misconception, actually, is that there's no multiplicative or anything like that. This is just, if a unit is a specific monster type, it adds additional ED. It doesn't apply after your ED. There's no like super bonus or anything like that. This is just simply more ED against those monster types. Don't let anybody convince you otherwise. But Tyrael's Might, again, guys, not a wasted mod on this. Faster run walk. I've socketed this with pretty shitty enhanced damage jewels right now. I'll work on it. The ideal jewel to have in here would be 40 ED, 9 dex. Then damage to demons, damage to undead, strength, all res, cannot be frozen is huge because really it allows you to replace your Ravenfrost or allows you to save on the very costly cannot be frozen war travs. And obviously this has no requirements whatsoever aside from the level requirement of 84. There's no strength requirement to wearing this, which is very nice. 3 open socket here would be ideal. So there was this situation last season, guys, where 3 open socket was objectively the best. 2 open socket was like comparable to fortitude, and 1 open socket was worse than fortitude. Now, because of the buff to this, a 2 open socket in pretty much almost every situation is going to be better than fortitude. Now that said, fortitude is still a great option for armor, and there's no reason to back away from it. A 2 open socket Tyrios might be prohibitively expensive to your build, so don't worry about it if you can't get it, but fortitude would be the next best armor here. For gloves, laying of hands, and I've done a number of tests here. I've tested it out. A lot of people are saying soul drainers this season, guys. I don't like soul drainers as much. Laying of hands, again, has that damage to demons. It's got that increased attack speed that soul drainers doesn't. And then, yeah, I mean, I have a pretty good corruption on this, 37 ED. You obviously can get 40. So, you know, obviously the higher, the better the base with the higher enhanced damage is going to be best in slot here. So for rings, because I don't need cannot be frozen, I can obviously get away from that Ravenfrost. Now, I have not crafted a good ring yet this season. This is a placeholder that I will definitely replace, but it has a lot of the mods that I want. So you want damage, life leech, you want a huge combination of these stats. So like really, you know, if this was to have 15 strength and 20 dex, I'd be much happier. Life, and then I'd probably prefer resist over mana. And if I were to choose my corruption, 6 all stats would probably be the one that I would choose. Or maybe I think you can get 8 all res or whatever. That would be fine as well. For the belt, now Nosferatu's. Again, this serves my purpose of getting me to the breakpoint that I need, which is 95. And again, there's not one wasted mod on this belt. Life Leech, Deadly Strike, slows target, strength, mana after each kill. This is just a super great belt. So if I were to slam this with the ideal thing, it would be +6 to all stats. Would be a really nice one for me to get. And then for ring, so let's talk about just buffing in general. So this has Heart of the Wolverine, which I will show you guys as soon as I buff. After I finish the boots, I'll do my swap, I'll do my buffs, and you guys can see the impact of all of this stuff. Now, this has +1 Heart of the Wolverines. It could have +3. 3 is the best. There's not a huge difference. So if you're trying to cut costs on this build, just go with a 1. It's not going to break your build at all. This has +8 strength, which isn't a great slam. Again, you could have +6 all stats would probably be the best. And then lastly, we have War Travs. And guys, I just need to call this out. Like, this says it adds 15 to 25 damage. It is not just 15 to 25 damage. You can see as I toggle this on and off, this is applied basically like pre-enhanced damage, I guess would be the best way to characterize it. So this actually adds a meaningful amount of damage to your build. As you can see, it's adding 170 on the min here. And, you know, this is pre-buff as well, right? So this is just adding a ton of damage. For your inventory, guys, obviously Torch and Annie, higher vitality, higher res, the better. And for small charms, you have 3 options that you really want. 1, 3 max AR dex. Number 2 would be 3 max AR strength. And again, as long as you're not over-indexed on strength. And the third option is max AR life. So again, depending on your want for survivability, like this is going to optimize your damage because again, dexterity equals damage. This is going to obviously aid your survivability. The best option, the perfect charm in this situation is 3-20-20. Despite the fact that it says 3-36-20. That 36 is only if it has 2 mods on it, but whatever, that's a digression. For Grand Charms, you can do something like this, max AR Strength, max AR Life, or max AR Dexterity. So again, just like the small charm, if you want to go absolute balls to the wall on on damage, this is the optimal charm right here, max AR and Dex. Okay, so let's buff. And so on my Switch, I use a Call to Arms. Now, CTA is in a weird spot right now because Battle Orders was nerfed in a very big way, but Battle Command, they added enhanced damage to it. So Cache of Battle Command, your Battle Orders, and then your Heart of the Wolverine. And all told, now I'm doing 12k damage with all my auras and my buffs. And so let's just quickly look at, so Heart of the Wolverine is adding 62% ED, and Battle Command is adding 53% ED. So that's why I like this on swap. Alternative options would be you could use a Demon Limb to enchant yourself. You could use Oath, but guys, let me make this clear. You can only use Oath if you use a Whispering. Because if you don't use a Whispering and you use Oath, which gives points in Heart of the Wolverine, when you swap back to your Wind Force a couple seconds later, your Heart of the Wolverine will despawn. So you need to have something permanent with Heart of the Wolverines on it, on your gear, which is the Wisp Projector in this case, in order to not despawn that Heart of the Wolverine. But all told, all of this stuff adds damage. We'll despawn this guy here, so you can see 1255 to 12k. Now we cast it again, and we're at 1314 to 12k. So again, it added a bit of damage. You know, a lot of people think, okay, well, it's just, 6% here, 10% there, 20% there. But it ultimately, I do have a lot of people say, oh, well, I don't know. I think I have basically the same gear as you, but I'm only doing 7k. Like, what's the difference? And it's just like, all of those things add up. So obviously, the higher level Heart of the Wolverine you can get, the better. And then obviously, of course, let's just quickly talk about the Mercenary. I think that there's really just two important pieces of gear for the Faith Bow. Obviously, again, you want 13 plus on the Fanaticism. Templar's Might with the higher level Might aura is best. Because this is an Aqua Mercenary, you are going to need to use a minus requirements jewel. In this case, I've just worn a bunch of gear that actually helps her equip this Templar's Might. But if I were to kind of optimize this, I'd probably wear a Crown of Ages for the curse duration. Again, if you were to look at the mod list of Crown of Ages, there's not one bad mod on it. Drac Gloves for the Life Leech, the Life Leech and the Strength. String of Ears for the PDR and the Life Leech, and whatever boots, doesn't really matter. Water Walks or War Travs are great. All those are fine options. So jump into a little bit of gameplay. I will just go down here and buff myself, and then I'm going to pop a map. I don't know how many good maps I've rolled right now. 216 density, a little bit rippy to do by myself, but whatever, guys. Let's go ahead and do it. I already did this. So let's just try to show off the build a little bit, what its capabilities are. Obviously, you can see that things die pretty quickly. However, I die pretty quickly as well. So you definitely want to avoid certain situations. Obviously, like last season, doing the River of Blood map over and over, those Fanaticism archers can be a little bit scary. A lot of that projectile damage is kind of what you want to avoid. Fortunately, this map in particular, I didn't choose this map for any particular reason, but this map is a relatively safe one for me to do. Despite obviously this is pretty high density. Not obviously going to go through the entire map, guys. The video has kind of run its course, but just want to show obviously what the capabilities of the build are. So as you can see, despite being a glass cannon and all that kind of stuff, if you can fire away and get your damage in from a distance, and you're not taking any projectile damage, you're probably going to be relatively safe. If you do take some projectile damage, and guys, actually this is a good opportunity for me to show off Magic Arrow. So, you take out physical immunity with relative ease. You don't want to get into a situation where you are where you're attacking large packs of physical immunities. But all told, you can definitely get through those one-off situations. So anyways, guys, back to a bit of this gameplay. Now, one of the things that can be called out is, even if you're taking a little bit of damage, like you don't want to put yourself in a situation where you can get one hit, but if you're taking a little bit of damage, you can probably outpace that damage with your life leech. So you can take a little bit of damage, guys. Like, obviously my fire resists are not great, and I'm taking hits from hydras right now. But at the same time, I am life leeching from the units that I'm hitting, and therefore I'm not in any like imminent danger. So yeah, again, like I said, guys, I'm not going to go through this this whole map. I just want to showcase, you're doing some pretty decent damage here. How to play a little bit, like obviously you're just trying to avoid those situations where you're getting hit. Here's another physical immune. So you can see, like with Magic Arrow, for this is like this is a relatively tanky unit. You're not going to get through it quickly, but you are going to get through it eventually, and that's all that matters. You're not going to run into to a ton of physical immunities if you pick the right map and all that kind of stuff. So I am just going to kill probably one more pack, and then I'll sign off this video, guys. If you do have any questions about this build, you have a couple of options. One, you can add me to Discord and feel free to ask me any questions. You can leave a comment in the comment section below. I do try to get to all comments, but now that I've posted so many videos, I am getting many comments per day, and it's not always the easiest for me to get back to you on the YouTube comments. Or 3, you can just wait for my series that will run through best in slot and why. And I'm going to start that, probably about 3 days from now. It'll run over the course of, I don't know, I guess 2 weeks. Just based on how many gear slots there are, but I'm going to try to release about a new video every 3 days covering a different gear slot, so stay tuned for that. If you guys are excited about that, please feel free to subscribe to my channel, and yeah, keep an eye out for my future videos. So again, this is Bora, guys. I'm signing off, and see you guys next time.